Imagine a courtroom so quiet you can hear the paper breathe, until one smile breaks it. Morning light leaks across the varnished benches, the kind that remembers 1,000 small mistakes and a few that weren't small at all. Judge Caprio flips a file open with the care of a man who knows weight doesn't come from pages, but from what's written on them. The City versus Amelia Clarkson, the clerk announces. She rises from the front row, early 20s, crisp blazer, hair pinned just so, phone face down, but within reach. There's a calm on her face that could be discipline or could be distance. When she steps to the microphone, the room shifts a little, as if testing the air around her. Ms. Clarkson, Caprio says, voice easy, eyes measuring. 3 citations for downtown parking violations and 1 for stopping in a restricted lane. Do you admit the offenses? She doesn't fidget. Yes, Your Honor. My father will pay. The words land with that soft thud you hear when something fragile drops on carpet. A few heads turn. Someone exhales through their teeth. Your father always pays? Caprio asks. She nods, polite, almost cheerful. It's simpler. These things are minor. Caprio sets his pen down. The motion is small, but it tilts the moment. Minor things, he repeats, often tell the truth about major ones. Do you know where the money goes when someone pays? Her mouth twitches, not quite a smile. To the city, I suppose. Public coffers, streetlights and trash cans. A few chuckles. The judge doesn't smile. Sometimes to that. Sometimes to remind us rules exist, because ambulances can't wait while we decide what matters. She blinks, surprised by the turn. I was never blocking an ambulance, sir. It was a minute at most. Which minute, he asks quietly. Yours, or the minute someone else didn't have? The room tightens. A phone is silenced in a hurry. She glances down at her hands, then back up, tone steady. Your Honor, I don't mean disrespect. I help with my father's foundation. We fund clinics and school programs. I'm not careless. I just don't make this my priority. Caprio leans forward a fraction. What is your priority, Miss Clarkson? Work, schedules, people who need me. She lifts her chin. I'm useful there. And here, he asks. A beat. Here I'm, resolving paperwork. He studies her. No anger, just an appraisal, the way a doctor studies a symptom that hasn't learned its name. The law isn't paperwork. It's a conversation with strangers about how we share space without stealing time. Her eyes flicker, a hairline crack in the poise. With respect, Your Honor, this feels like a lecture over a parking ticket. It's a lesson, he says, offered at the price of a parking ticket. Silence takes the room again. He taps the corner of the file, once. You said your father will pay. I'm wondering when you plan to meet the person who keeps showing up in your place. She draws a breath, cools it before it leaves her mouth. I show up where I'm needed. Then let's find out, Caprio says, tone lightening by a shade. We'll start simple. Where were you when these citations were issued? And who was waiting for you that couldn't wait for anyone else? The question hangs above the docket like a bell not yet rung. Her smile thins. For the first time, the phone on the table looks less like a tool and more like a shield. The judge waits, patient as granite. He doesn't press. He doesn't have to. The room, the file, the minutes she borrowed, all of it presses for him. Where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Caprio keeps his voice warm, almost conversational. Ms. Clarkson, help me understand your life beyond this file. Where do your days go? She lifts her chin a fraction. I'm in college. Business track. Most weeks I'm also at my father's offices, Clarex Holdings. The name moves through the room like a draft. A few faces register recognition. So you keep a busy calendar, Caprio says. I do. Meetings, site visits, planning events for our foundation. She lets the word foundation rest where everyone can see it. Useful. Admirable. He nods, not impressed, not dismissive. And the night of your 3rd citation? She hesitates, then steadies. A benefit at the Children's Hospital. We sponsor a therapy wing. I was late. Parking was impossible. So you chose the emergency lane, he answers softly. It was a minute. She tries to smile, and can't quite. I didn't see any ambulance. Ambulances don't announce themselves in advance, Caprio replies. They arrive in the 1 minute everyone else thinks is harmless. The room stills. Far back, a chair leg ticks against tile and goes quiet. Amelia's hands flatten on the podium, knuckles pale. He shifts slightly, eyes easing. Tell me about your father. She exhales. He built the company from nothing. Works before sunrise, sleeps after midnight. He believes in solving problems quickly. If a fine shows up, he clears it. Clean ledger, clean conscience. And yours? Caprio asks. My conscience. She startles at the word, then recovers. I give my time. That's how I contribute. To whom, he asks. The people who see your name on a banner? Or the ones who don't have time to read it? Color rises in her cheeks. With respect, Your Honor, I'm not careless. I'm efficient. Efficiency is a fine servant, Caprio says, and a poor witness. He checks the file again. Earlier citations, downtown, mid-morning, loading zones. I was dropping documents, then heading to campus. I don't stand around. I move. And who stands for you when you move past the rules? He asks. She blinks. I don't expect anyone to. He taps the folder once, a heartbeat under paper. You expect someone to pay. A thin silence follows. She reaches for the word that always saves her. My father. Will handle it. Caprio finishes, gentle but firm. You said that already. She looks away, eyes fixed on the courtroom clock. Seconds pass and collect. He breaks the pause with something smaller, sharper. What did the benefit support? Pediatric oncology, she answers. The certainty in her voice returns. Equipment. Staff training. And you parked in the corridor used to deliver children to that care, Caprio says. No heat, just gravity. Your intentions may have been generous. Your minute could have been fatal. The sentence lands without echo. For a long breath, even the fluorescent lights seem to dim. Amelia swallows, voice quieter. I didn't think of it that way. That, he says, is the point. He leans back. MS. Clarkson, people like your father, people like you, keep a city running when they remember one truth. Money solves invoices, not consequences. I'm not here to measure what Clarx funds. I'm here to measure what you noticed. She stares down at her hands, at the phone she hasn't touched since the beginning. You want me to say I was wrong. I want you to say you were there, Caprio answers. Not your last name. Not your foundation. You. The air feels heavier, not hostile, just honest. Amelia inhales, steadies herself on the edge of the podium. I arrived late. I took a space that wasn't mine. I told myself it was fine because I was doing something good. And now, he prompts. And now I hear how that sounds, she says, the words sanding themselves as they come out. Small favors don't cancel big risks. Caprio inclines his head. No triumph, only acknowledgement. Good. We can work with clarity. He closes the file half an inch, enough to signal a turn. Next, I want to understand who actually pays when you don't. Caprio adjusts his glasses, opens the folder again, and lets a single page slide free. Ms. Clarkson, he says softly. According to these records, the payments for your last 3 citations didn't come from your father's accounts. Do you know who made them? Her brows knit. I assume his office handled it. Someone in finance. He shakes his head. The receipts list one name. Ricardo Mendez. Does that sound familiar? She blinks, caught off guard. Ricardo? He's my driver. Caprio leans back, giving her space. Your driver paid your fines? That can't be right, she says quickly. He probably just processed them with the card my father provided. No, Caprio replies, turning the paper so the room can see the signature. He signed with his own name. Personal card. Same handwriting on each payment. The room murmurs, low, uneasy. Amelia's composure wavers for the first time. Your Honor, I had no idea, she says. I never asked him to do that. Perhaps not, Caprio says. But he did it anyway. Would you like to ask him why? He gestures toward the back. A man in his 50s rises, gray at the temples, clean uniform, eyes lowered. Ricardo walks down the aisle with quiet dignity, the sound of his shoes measured and heavy. He stops near her, hat in hand. Caprio, Mr. Mendez, did you pay these fines? Yes, Your Honor. On whose instruction? On no one's, he says. I didn't want Miss Clarkson's father to see the tickets. He's a proud man. I didn't want her to lose his trust. Amelia turns to him, stunned. You what? Why would you do that? Ricardo hesitates, then speaks with the kind of gentleness that hurts more than anger. Because you remind me of my daughter, ma'am. She's about your age. Thinks the world will always wait for her. I pay the fines and tell her to slow down too. Her voice trembles. Ricardo, You shouldn't have. I know, he says. But sometimes people don't learn until someone pays twice for them. Caprio nods slowly, the weight of the moment filling the room. Mr. Mendez, I appreciate your honesty. You may return to your seat. Ricardo bows slightly and steps back, the echo of his retreat softer than the silence he leaves behind. Amelia doesn't look up. Her voice is barely a whisper. I didn't know. I never even asked. Caprio folds his hands. That's often how we lose sight of decency, not by cruelty, but by convenience. The people who protect us become invisible. She looks toward Ricardo, now seated, eyes fixed on the floor. The shame sits plainly on her shoulders. Caprio's tone softens. Miss Clarkson, your father may build companies, but this man, he built your reputation when you weren't watching. The words settle deep, like dust after a long breath. She presses her lips together, nodding once, slow, almost reverent. Caprio closes the folder. From here on, he says quietly, we're not talking about fines anymore. We're talking about how you plan to repay what can't be written on paper. Caprio sits perfectly still, his hands folded on the bench. The quiet stretches long enough for everyone to feel the weight of it. Then, softly, but with unmistakable precision, he says, Miss Clarkson, did you know someone was paying for your mistakes? Her voice is faint. I thought it was my father. You never checked? She shakes her head. No, they're just fines. No, Miss Clarkson, Caprio says, his tone tightening ever so slightly. They're not just fines. They're a map of your life, someone cleaning the mess while you smile for the next picture. The air in the courtroom changes. The casual confidence that had followed her since she entered seems to dissolve in the stillness. She lowers her eyes. Caprio continues, quieter now. Do you know how much Mr. Mendez earns? She hesitates. No, less than the cost of the handbag on your arm, he says simply. Yet he paid off every one of your debts. The sentence lands like a soft blow. Her shoulders drop. She looks toward Ricardo, his weathered hands folded in his lap, his eyes fixed on the floor. Why didn't you tell me? She asks, her voice breaking for the first time. Ricardo glances up, his tone humble, almost apologetic. Because I thought one day you'd realize it yourself. That it would mean more coming from you than from me. A hush spreads through the room. For a heartbeat, even the air seems to hold still. Amelia swallows hard, her polished demeanor stripped away, replaced by something fragile and real. Caprio's voice softens again. The trouble with privilege, Miss Clarkson, is that it makes gratitude optional. Until one day, it isn't. Her lips part, but no sound comes. The judge studies her face, not with scorn, but with the kind of patience only earned by years of watching people break and rebuild themselves in front of him. He leans forward slightly. You see, the law doesn't exist to humiliate you. It exists to remind you who gets hurt when you stop noticing. A tear forms, stubborn and uninvited. She wipes it quickly, almost angry at herself for feeling. Caprio gives a single nod. That's enough for today. He taps the gavel once, not as a punishment, but as a punctuation mark. Gentle, final. We'll continue in a moment, he says. But I think we've reached something important. She lifts her eyes, voice unsteady. What's that? He meets her gaze. The part where excuses stop working. No one moves. The spectators sit frozen, unsure if they're witnessing justice or mercy, or both. Caprio closes the folder in front of him and says, almost to himself, some lessons don't wait for verdicts. He looks back at her, his tone now calm, almost kind. Today, Miss Clarkson, is the day you start paying attention. Caprio lets the silence settle before speaking again. His tone is measured, free of triumph, just calm clarity. Miss Clarkson, I could fine you $400 today, maybe more. You could pay it before leaving this building, forget about it by lunch, and nothing in your life would change. That would be easy for both of us. He leans forward, eyes fixed on her. But justice isn't supposed to be easy. It's supposed to mean something. Amelia nods faintly, eyes rimmed with red. I've read enough about your father's company. Caprio continues. I imagine $400 doesn't even make it to the accounting books. But you see, there are debts you can't pay with money. He turns toward Ricardo. Mr. Mendez, how much did you spend on these fines? About $600, Your Honor. And you don't want it back? Ricardo shakes his head. No, sir. I didn't do it for that. Caprio nods once, thinking. The entire courtroom waits. Then, quiet but firm, he delivers his ruling. Here's my decision. Miss Clarkson, you will repay those $600. But not to the court. You'll donate them to the children's hospital where you blocked that emergency lane. She blinks, startled. You'll make the payment under his name, Caprio adds, gesturing toward Ricardo. Mr. Mendez. Not your family, not your company, not the foundation, M. And you'll do it yourself. No assistants, no cameras, no announcements. Just you and a receipt. A murmur moves through the audience, then stillness again. Amelia takes a breath. Yes, Your Honor. That's not all, Caprio says. After you make that donation, you'll come back here. Not for punishment, for conversation. You'll tell this court what you learned, not as a CEO's daughter, but as a person. She nods again, slower this time. I understand. He closes the file gently. We don't celebrate humiliation in this courtroom, he says, voice soft but resonant. We celebrate the moment someone starts listening to their conscience. For a long moment, no one speaks. Ricardo glances toward her, eyes kind but steady. Amelia manages a small, unsteady smile in return, a gesture halfway between apology and gratitude. Caprio clears his throat. Mr. Mendez, you've done more for this young woman than most teachers could. You gave her a lesson that can't be found in any textbook. Ricardo bows his head. She'll find her own way now, Your Honor. That's enough for me. Caprio studies them both. Maybe, but kindness shouldn't come at your expense forever. He turns to Amelia again. Remember this, Miss Clarkson. Every act of indifference creates a space that someone else has to fill. Today, you start closing those spaces yourself. Amelia straightens slightly, her voice steadier now. I will. I promise. The judge's face softens, almost smiling. Promises are easy in rooms like this. The test begins when the door closes behind you. She meets his eyes and nods. Then I'll make sure it keeps going after the door. Caprio taps his pen once, the sound echoing like a heartbeat. Good. That's all for today. I expect you back when your conscience has something new to say. As she gathers her things, the courtroom remains silent, not out of judgment, but respect. Even the hum of the fluorescent lights feels subdued. Before she steps away from the podium, Amelia turns toward Ricardo. Thank you, she whispers. He simply nods, a small smile tracing his tired face. Caprio watches the exchange with quiet satisfaction, then says, Court adjourned. The gavel falls, not with force, but with a sense of closure. Not an ending, but the beginning of something earned. 3 weeks later, the courtroom looks the same. Same polished benches, same hum of the old ceiling fan. But something feels different. There's less noise, less movement, as if even the walls are waiting. The clerk walks in with a white envelope. Your Honor, she says softly, Miss Clarkson has returned. Caprio looks up from his desk. Is she here? She's waiting outside. She asked to speak after you read this. The judge takes the envelope, unseals it, and pulls out a handwritten letter. The paper is creased, the ink slightly smudged, as if someone rewrote it several times before getting it right. He begins to read aloud, his voice quiet but carrying easily through the empty room. Your Honor, I made the donation, just like you said. $600. I thought it would be simple. Write a check, hand it over, walk away. But the woman at the hospital asked if I'd like to see where the money went. I said yes, though I wasn't sure why. She took me upstairs to the pediatric ward. I met a little boy named Jonah. He had oxygen tubes and a smile too big for his face. He asked if I was a doctor. I said no. He said, that's okay. You look like someone who makes people better anyway. I didn't know what to say. I just sat there and talked to him. For an hour. He told me he wanted to be an engineer when he grew up, to build cars that could fly. I told him he might actually do it. He said, only if you come see it. That day I realized something. Ricardo wasn't paying for my mistakes. He was holding space for the person I was supposed to become. So, I've done what you asked and more. I've convinced my father to match the donation and to start a program at his company. Employees can volunteer 1 paid day a month to help at the hospital. It doesn't fix everything, but it's a start. I finally understand what you meant about debts that aren't paid in money. They're paid in awareness and in time. Thank you for letting me learn it the hard way. Amelia Clarkson. Caprio lowers the paper slowly. There's a stillness in him, a mixture of pride and quiet reflection. Send her in, he says. The door opens. Amelia steps inside, not the confident socialite from before, but someone simpler, unguarded. Her hair is tied back, no jewelry, no designer bag, just a plain gray coat and a steady gaze. "Good morning, Miss Clarkson," the judge says. "Good morning, Your Honor. You've been busy." She smiles faintly. "Busier than I've ever been for something that didn't have my name on it." Caprio gestures toward the letter. "That's a fine piece of writing. I wasn't sure how to start it," she admits. "But when I met Jonah, I realized it wasn't about words. It was about seeing someone who doesn't have the luxury of pretending their problems aren't real." Caprio nods. "And what about Mr. Mendez?" "I went to see him," she says. "Brought him the receipt for the donation. He tried to refuse it, said he didn't need proof. So I framed it instead and gave it to him as a thank you." "Did he accept?" She smiles softly. He said, "Now that's the first fine you ever paid, right?" The courtroom ripples with a quiet laugh. Even Caprio allows himself a small grin. He leans back in his chair. "You know, Miss Clarkson, I've been sitting on this bench for decades. I've seen people lie, cry, and promise change, but very few come back to show it." Amelia takes a slow breath. "I don't want to forget what this room felt like the first time. The embarrassment, the noise in my head. It's strange, but I think I needed to be seen that way, to stop pretending everything was under control." Caprio studies her for a moment. "Tell me, what do you think justice means now?" She answers without hesitation. "It's when someone gives you a chance to rebuild your dignity instead of just taking your money." He nods, satisfied. "That's close enough." For a moment, they sit in silence, just the ticking of the courtroom clock between them. Then Caprio says quietly, "When I was a young lawyer, I thought justice was about being right. Then I became a judge and thought it was about being fair. But now, I think it's about being human." He sets the letter down, hands folded again. "You've done what the law asked and more. So, Miss Clarkson, your case is closed." She exhales, the tension leaving her shoulders. "Thank you, Your Honor." He gives her a nod. "No, Miss Clarkson, thank you for reminding everyone here that even privilege can learn humility." She turns to leave, but stops near the door. "Your Honor." "Yes. Do you think Jonah will actually build that flying car?" Caprio smiles. "If you keep your promise to visit him, I don't see why not." She laughs softly, nods, and exits the courtroom. As the door closes behind her, the judge sits for a long moment, looking at the empty space she left. The letter lies open before him, the sunlight falling across the ink. He murmurs, almost to himself, "Some fines fix cars, others fix people." The clerk steps in quietly. "Next case, Your Honor?" Caprio looks up, his voice steady, warm. "Yes, let's see who's ready to learn today." The gavel strikes once, gentle, deliberate, and the sound echoes through the room like the heartbeat of something finally set right.